In this video, I talk about the games that I think PlayStation Studios should be working on. I think it's easy to pick sequels for popular franchises and simply suggest that PlayStation makes those. While I am going to do this for a few suggestions, I am going to detail how I'd like some of these sequels to be developed. I think there is a large gap in PlayStation's current offering of games in one particular area that needs addressing. And then I'm going to suggest some wildcard ideas that may make good video games. Let's start with the sequels first. I love the Uncharted games, and while Nathan Drake's story concluded in Uncharted 4: A Thief's End, I think there are plenty more stories to be told with the characters from this franchise. I think the next Uncharted game should be similar to Uncharted Lost Legacy in terms of length and scope. In other words, about 8 to 10 hours, but ultra high quality production. The storyline could follow a young Victor Sullivan before he met Nathan Drake. This would be really interesting story to explore, while also enabling different gameplay opportunities. In the epilogue of Uncharted 4, we see Nate and Elena's daughter Cassie discover her parents' past life of treasure hunting. I think it would be cool if this discovery sparked her interest to go on an adventure of her own. I think by following Cassie it would enable the continuation of the Drake legacy, but would also open up a completely new perspective. My last suggestion within the Uncharted franchise would be to see what Sam Drake got up to after Uncharted 4. We know that he has a small part to play in Uncharted Lost Legacy, but he didn't seem like he'd finished treasure hunting just yet. The next game I'm going to talk about is Bloodborne. Bloodborne is perhaps one of the most highly demanded games for PlayStation to be working on in some way right now. There have been rumours that a Bloodborne remaster is on the way for PlayStation 5, but I think remastering that game is going to be quite an undertaking, so I personally don't expect to hear anything about it this year. Given that Bluepoint Games remade Demon's Souls for the PlayStation 5 and did a grand job with it, I think it makes perfect sense for Bluepoint to tackle Bloodborne Remaster. Bluepoint will already have a working knowledge of how to get the most out of From Software's game engine and assets, from their experience developing Demon's Souls for the PlayStation 5. And you would therefore imagine that the development process would be pretty smooth if they decided to work on Bloodborne Remaster. I think PlayStation should also explore the potential of Bloodborne 2. The desire for more Souls-like games seems to be ever growing, and the success of Demon's Souls will surely have shown the potential of what a sequel could look like on the PlayStation 5 hardware. The last sequel I'm going to suggest is a new entry in the Sly Cooper franchise. While I think some gamers will never have heard of this franchise, others will have fond memories of these games from the PlayStation 2 or PlayStation 3 era. For those unfamiliar with the Sly Cooper games, you play as Sly Raccoon, a master thief who is accompanied on his adventures by two friends, Bentley the tech whiz turtle and Murray who is a brute force hippo. Together, the three aim to reclaim artifacts and defeat scheming bosses to stop the world being taken over by evil. While the stealth gameplay and melee combat was simple, the story, bosses and variety of puzzles was pretty good. The Sly Cooper games were great light-hearted fun, and this is why I'd be really interested to see a new entry in this franchise. It would be amazing if this new entry could use the tech used on the latest Ratchet & Clank game, because boy does that game look great.
No. All good here, Bentley.
I mentioned in the intro of this video that there is a gap in PlayStation's current offering of games, and in my opinion the glaring hole is multiplayer games in any form. PlayStation Studios may be seen as the master of single-player story-driven adventures, but when it comes to multiplayer and online games, PlayStation seems to be happy to let third-party studios and publishers do the work. While this strategy may have worked well over the last 5 to 10 years, I think PlayStation is soon going to find themselves struggling to catch up with AAA multiplayer experiences offered by the likes of Call of Duty, Battlefield, and maybe even Halo when Halo Infinite launches. I think multiplayer games offer different ways to make money for Sony compared to single-player games, and this is potential revenue that I feel PlayStation is missing out on. I am not suggesting that PlayStation make a microtransaction-filled online multiplayer game. Far from it. I'm simply suggesting a multiplayer game with seasonal updates similar to Rainbow Six Siege or Overwatch. I think it would be easy for PlayStation to bring back the Killzone franchise to fill the void, but I think a brand new IP would be preferred. I believe that PlayStation needs at least one brand new online multiplayer IP each year with good post-launch updates to match the likes of Fortnite and Call of Duty. Once one of these multiplayer IPs gains enough traction, PlayStation could double down on that specific IP with seasonal content and slightly reduce their focus on the others. PlayStation doesn't have a competitive third-person shooter, first-person shooter, they don't have a class-based shooter, and they don't have a hero shooter. So all of these could potentially be explored. PlayStation offers very few racing games or fighting games, so these genres could also do with some well-needed exploration. I think that these genres are less of a priority for PlayStation since EA holds the cards behind most of the popular racing games besides Forza. Fighting games don't tend to sell well and have a smaller following compared to other genres, but I do think a big player such as Sony could do wonders to increase the profile of fighting games if they dip their toes into it. On to the wildcard suggestions now. I know very little about my next three suggestions as they are all movie franchises that I know very little about. The movie franchises in question are Ghostbusters, Venom and Jumanji. I'm aware that a Ghostbusters game on the PS3 was critically acclaimed. This suggests that Ghostbusters can be made into a good video game. With the Ghostbusters Afterlife movie coming towards the end of 2021, I think a new Ghostbusters third-person action game could have potential. There was a Jumanji game released in 2019, but it wasn't critically received. I think Jumanji has the potential to make a great video game, but the release in 2019 took the wrong approach in my opinion. My limited understanding of the 2019 release was that it tried to follow the direction of Tomb Raider Guardian of Light, in that it was a top-down dungeon crawler with puzzles. I'd like to see a Jumanji game take a similar approach to Guardians of the Galaxy or Marvel's Avengers. A third-person action game where each character would have their strengths and weaknesses in combat, but this could also be used for puzzles and traversal sections within the game. I'm completely unfamiliar with Venom as a property, but the recent trailer for the Venom movie, Venom Let There Be Carnage, seems decent, and perhaps the franchise could make a decent video game. The final game I'm suggesting will be the biggest mic drop moment of any E3 conference of all time. It's Grand Theft Auto San Andreas Remake. Now before you say that will never happen, remember that Final Fantasy VII Remake has happened, and as of the 8th of July 2021, it's only been playable on a PlayStation system. So you can probably see where I'm going here. I'd like to see Grand Theft Auto San Andreas remade and brought to the PlayStation 5 as a timed exclusive for at least 2 years. If it's exclusive for less time, gamers will probably just wait to play it on PC or Xbox, so it needs to be at least a couple of years on PlayStation 5 only. Rockstar Games clearly have a very large and skilled development team in order to make games such as Grand Theft Auto 5 and Red Dead Redemption 2 over the last decade. I therefore think it's plausible to suggest that the teams that made these critically acclaimed games will be more than capable of remaking GTA San Andreas, provided they were given enough time and resource. If GTA San Andreas was remade, I think the game's main storyline and events must remain exactly the same as the original. The game engine, visual quality, frame rate, and gameplay mechanics could all be updated to modern standards and really push the limit of the PlayStation 5 hardware. I hope that you enjoyed my suggestions of games PlayStation Studios should be working on, or in the case of Grand Theft Auto San Andreas, gaining exclusivity to it for an extended period. I'd be really interested to hear what games you'd like PlayStation to be working on in the comments, and thank you for watching.